We begin with a breaking detail in Israel. They are now convening a security cabinet meeting to discuss developments with Lebanon today. Obviously, forward progress after all of this in Washington. Yesterday, Lebanon and Israel holding their very first direct diplomatic engagements in decades. And it was Secretary of State Marco Rubio there leading the discussions. Of course, the intense fighting between Israel and the Iranian proxy Hezbollah in Lebanon continues to flare up. So, again, a bit of a development there. And the major development, though, is could this ceasefire that is still in place and holding be extended? The U.S. military also says a blockade targeting ships going in and out of Iranian ports is working. For more, let's head out to national security correspondent Carla Babb. She's got all the details on this. Carla, welcome in.
Hey, Bianca, no ships coming from Iranian ports have passed through the Strait of Hormuz. That is the message from U.S. CENTCOM Chief Admiral Brad Cooper. In a post on X last night, Cooper said the military had fully implemented the blockade and had completely halted economic trade going into and out of Iran by sea. Tanker traffic in the Strait appears to support that statement. The Malta ship you mentioned had not stopped at an Iranian port. A U.S. official tells Newsmax that American naval forces have intercepted multiple oil tankers entering or leaving Iranian ports since the start of the blockade on Monday morning. U.S. forces radioed the ship's crews each time and instructed them to reverse course. Let's listen.
The U.S. has announced a formal blockade of Iranian ports and coastal areas. This is illegal action. All vessels are advised to immediately return to port if leaving and discontinue transit to Iran if that is your next port of call. Do not attempt to breach the blockade. Vessels will be boarded for interdiction and seizure, transiting to or from an Iranian port. Turn around and prepare to be boarded. If you do not comply with this blockade, we will use force. The whole of the United States Navy is ready to force compliance. Now.
So all of the tankers have complied and no boarding has been necessary thus far. Iran state media says one of its super tankers broke the blockade by turning its transponder off. One U.S. official tells me this isn't true. Another says that they are investigating this allegation. The complex U.S. blockade currently involves at least 15 ships, including the USS Abe Lincoln aircraft carrier, 2 amphibious warships, and several guided missile destroyers. Marines and special operations teams will enforce the blockade by boarding and taking control of the ships if needed. Not needed so far, but if needed. We saw this with the Coast Guard members and Marines who boarded sanctioned oil tankers off the coast of Venezuela earlier this year. Another aircraft carrier is nearby. That's the USS Ford, with a third on the way. We learned earlier this week that the USS George H.W. Bush aircraft carrier strike group left Norfolk, Virginia on March 31st and is going around the southern tip of Africa following threats from Iran-backed Houthi militants to strike ships in the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait in solidarity with Iran. Now, Bianca, normally an aircraft carrier and its strike group would take the shorter route through the Mediterranean into the Red Sea. Taking the longer route means the Bush is still, roughly 2 weeks from reaching the Middle East. And I should note that the Ford today just broke the record for the longest post-Cold War deployment. It has been deployed 295 days. Bianca.
Breaking records. All right, we'll see where it all goes in the coming days. Carla Babb, good to have you with us.
He loves the Constitution. He fights for what's right. He hates the bad guys. He's a freedom warrior. He's your freedom warrior. Watch Carl Higbie every weekday on Newsmax.